The morning sun painted the Colorado mountains gold as Jake Crowfeather walked toward the youth camp. He'd been a park ranger for 15 years now, and summer programs were his favorite part of the job. Kids always brought energy and laughter to the quiet wilderness he called home. Jake was 33 years old, tall and lean from years of hiking mountain trails. His long black hair was usually tied back in a simple ponytail, and his weathered hands told stories of campfires and rope climbing. Most people saw him as the quiet ranger who knew every bird call and could track a deer through thick forest. They didn't know about the life he'd left behind on the Apache reservation in Arizona. That morning started like any other. Jake checked his clipboard, counted the tents, and made sure the fire pit was ready for the evening storytelling session. 25 kids from Phoenix were spending 2 weeks learning about nature, camping skills, and outdoor survival. It was supposed to be routine. Then he saw the boy. The kid was maybe 12 years old, sitting alone on a log while other children played nearby. He had dark hair that caught the sunlight, and when he looked up, Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. Those eyes were so familiar they made his chest tight. "Hey there," Jake said, walking over slowly. "I'm Jake, one of the rangers here." "What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy said, giving him a small smile. "Tommy Rodriguez. This place is really cool." Jake nodded, but his mind was spinning. Something about this kid felt like looking in a mirror from 20 years ago. The shape of his face, the way he held his shoulders, even the small scar above his left eyebrow that looked exactly like the one Jake had gotten falling off a horse when he was 7. "You having fun so far?" Jake asked, sitting down beside him. "Yeah, it's awesome. My mom saved up for months to send me here. She said I needed to see what the real outdoors was like." Tommy picked up a pine cone and turned it over in his hands. "She grew up in a small town, but I've lived in the city my whole life." "What's your mom's name?" The question slipped out before Jake could stop himself. "Rosa Rodriguez. She teaches 3rd grade." Tommy looked up at him with curious eyes. "Why?" Jake's heart started pounding. Rosa, not the name he was thinking of, but people change their names sometimes. People run away from their past sometimes, just like he had. "Just wondering. I like to know about all the families who trust us with their kids." Jake managed to keep his voice steady, but inside he felt like he was falling off a cliff. The rest of that day, Jake found himself watching Tommy without meaning to. The boy was smart and funny, quick to help other kids, and brave enough to try the rock climbing wall on his first attempt. But it wasn't just his personality that caught Jake's attention. It was the way Tommy tilted his head when he was thinking hard about something. It was how he rubbed his left ear when he was nervous. It was the way he said awesome with a little laugh at the end, just like Jake used to do when he was that age. During lunch, Jake sat with the group and listened to the kids talk about their families. Tommy mentioned that his mom was a teacher, that they lived in a small apartment in Phoenix, and that it was just the 2 of them. "What about your dad?" asked one of the other kids. Tommy shrugged. "I don't have one. I mean, I do somewhere, but Mom says he left before I was born. She says maybe someday I'll meet him, but right now it's just us, and that's okay." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He excused himself and walked quickly toward the forest, needing air, needing space to think. 15 years ago, Jake had been 18 and in love with a girl named Rosa Martinez. She was 17, beautiful, and the only person who understood why he felt trapped on the reservation. They spent hours talking about dreams and plans, about leaving Arizona and seeing the world together. But then everything fell apart. Jake's father got sick. The family started fighting about money and land rights. Some relatives wanted to sell property to a casino company. Others wanted to keep the old ways. Jake felt pulled in a dozen different directions, with everyone expecting him to pick a side. The pressure got so bad that he couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. Rosa tried to help, tried to be there for him, but Jake felt like he was drowning. So he did the only thing that made sense to his 18-year-old brain. He ran away. One night he packed a bag and left without saying goodbye to anyone. He drove his beat-up truck north until it broke down in Colorado, then found work at a ranch. Eventually he became a park ranger, built a quiet life in the mountains, and tried to forget everything he'd left behind, including Rosa. Now sitting on a fallen log in the forest, Jake pulled out his phone and did something he'd never had the courage to do before. He searched for Rosa Rodriguez, Phoenix teacher. His hands shook as he found her school's website. There she was in the staff photo. older now but still beautiful. Rosa Rodriguez, third-grade teacher at Desert Bloom Elementary. The same dark eyes, the same warm smile he remembered from 15 years ago. But her last name was Rodriguez now, not Martinez. Jake closed his eyes and counted backward. If Tommy was 12, he would have been born about 13 years ago. That was right around the time Jake left the reservation. The timeline fit perfectly. That evening, while the kids roasted marshmallows around the campfire, Jake found himself staring at Tommy again. The boy was telling a joke that had everyone laughing, his face lit up by the orange flames. In that light, the resemblance was even stronger. "That boy," Jake whispered to himself as he watched Tommy help a younger kid fix his burned marshmallow. "Is he mine?" The question hit him like a lightning bolt. All these years he'd wondered what happened to Rosa, if she was happy, if she ever thought about him. He'd never considered that she might have been pregnant when he left. But looking at Tommy now, seeing his own features in the boy's face, Jake couldn't ignore the possibility anymore. After the kids went to their tents, Jake sat alone by the dying fire. The camp coordinator, an older woman named Mrs. Patterson, came over with 2 cups of coffee. "You've been quiet tonight," she said, settling beside him. "Everything okay? Mrs. Patterson, can you tell me more about Tommy Rodriguez? His family situation, I mean." She sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Sweet kid. His mother works 2 jobs to support them. She's a teacher during the school year and does tutoring in the summer. She saved up all year to send him to camp." She paused. "Why do you ask?" I think I might know his family. From a long time ago." Mrs. Patterson studied his face in the firelight. "You know, now that you mention it, there is a resemblance. Same eyes, same smile." She was quiet for a moment. "Jake, if you think what I think you're thinking, you need to be very careful. That boy has a good life with his mother. Don't mess that up unless you're absolutely sure, and unless you're ready to be part of his life for good." Jake nodded, knowing she was right. But as he walked back to his cabin that night, he couldn't stop thinking about all the moments he might have missed. First steps, first words, birthdays, scraped knees, bedtime stories. If Tommy was his son, then Jake had already missed 12 years of his life. The question that had started as a whisper in his mind was now shouting so loud he couldn't ignore it anymore. But knowing the answer would mean facing the biggest mistake he'd ever made. It would mean admitting that when he ran away from his problems 15 years ago, he'd also run away from the best thing that ever happened to him. And maybe, just maybe, he'd run away from his own child. Jake didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, memories came flooding back like water through a broken dam. He saw Rosa as she was 15 years ago, with her long dark hair always smelling like vanilla shampoo, and her laugh that could make him forget all his troubles. They had met during his senior year of high school. Rosa was a year younger, new to the reservation because her family had moved there for her father's job. Most of the other kids ignored her at first, but Jake was drawn to her quiet confidence and the way she wasn't afraid to speak up in class. Their first real conversation happened during lunch when Jake found her sitting alone reading a book. "What are you reading?" he had asked. "A book about wolves," she said, looking up with those dark eyes that would haunt his dreams for years. "Did you know they mate for life?" That simple question started everything. They spent hours talking about animals, about dreams, about feeling trapped in a place that others called home, but sometimes felt like a cage to them. Jake remembered their first kiss under the old cottonwood tree by the river. He remembered teaching Rosa how to ride his horse Midnight, and how she laughed when the horse decided to stop and eat grass instead of following the trail. But most of all, he remembered their last fight. It was a hot summer night in July. Jake's father had been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the doctor said he probably wouldn't make it through the month. The whole family was falling apart. His uncle wanted to sell the family land to a casino company that had been making offers for years. His aunt said selling would dishonor their ancestors. His mother just cried all the time and asked Jake to fix everything, like he was the man of the house now. Jake felt like he was being pulled in 10 different directions, and none of them felt right. "Talk to me," Rosa had pleaded that night as they sat by the river. "Tell me what's wrong. We can figure this out together." But Jake couldn't find the words. How could he explain that he felt like he was suffocating, that everyone expected him to have answers he didn't have? That he was 18 years old and felt like the weight of his entire family's future was on his shoulders? I can't do this anymore, he had said instead. Can't do what? Rosa asked, and he could hear the fear in her voice. Any of it. This place, these problems, this responsibility. I never asked for any of this. Rosa had grabbed his hand. Jake, you're scared. That's normal. But running away won't fix anything. Maybe it will fix everything. The words came out harder than he meant them to. What's that supposed to mean? Jake had stood up then, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Maybe everyone would be better off if I just left. Let my uncle sell the land if he wants to. Let someone else take care of Mom. Let everyone else figure it out. And what about us? Rosa's voice was small now, almost a whisper. That's when Jake made the biggest mistake of his life. Instead of telling her he loved her, instead of saying he was just scared and needed her help, he said the words that would destroy everything. There is no us, Rosa. There's just you trying to fix me, and me feeling trapped by everyone who needs something from me. He could still see her face in the moonlight, the way it crumpled like he'd hit her, the tears that started falling before she even spoke. That's not true, she had whispered. I love you, Jake. I don't want to fix you. I just want to help you. I don't want your help. I don't want anyone's help. I just want to be left alone. Rosa had stood up slowly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Fine, if that's what you want, then go. Run away like a coward, but don't you dare blame me or your family or this place for your problems. The only person trapping you is yourself. She had started walking away, but then she turned back one more time. And don't you dare come back and expect me to be waiting for you when you finally grow up. Those were the last words Rosa Martinez ever spoke to him. 3 days later, Jake packed his truck and left in the middle of the night. He drove north without stopping, trying to outrun the memory of Rosa's tears and the sound of his father calling his name from the hospital bed he would never leave. Now, lying in his cabin bed 15 years later, Jake wondered if Rosa had been pregnant that night by the river. Had she already known? Was that why she fought so hard to make him stay? The thought made him sick to his stomach. Over the next few days, Jake found himself studying Tommy even more carefully. The resemblance was impossible to ignore now that he was really looking. Tommy had Jake's hands long and strong for a 12-year-old. He had the same way of squinting when he looked at something far away. And when he concentrated on tying knots or building a campfire, he got the same little crease between his eyebrows that Jake's mother always said made him look just like his grandfather. But it was more than just looks. Tommy had Jake's love for the outdoors, his natural ability with animals. When an injured bird fell from its nest, Tommy was the first kid to want to help it. When the camp dog got lost for half a day, Tommy was the one who found him hiding under a fallen log. You're really good with animals, Jake told him one afternoon as they watched a family of deer drinking from the stream. Tommy shrugged, but Jake could see he was pleased. My mom says I have a gift. She says maybe I'll be a veterinarian someday. What does she tell you about your father? The question came out before Jake could stop himself. Tommy looked at him with curious eyes. Why do you keep asking about my family? Jake's heart pounded. He had to be more careful. Sorry, I guess I'm just curious. In my culture, we believe family connections are very important. What culture is that? Apache. Tommy's eyes widened. Really? That's so cool. I did a school report on Native American tribes last year. The Apache were warriors, right? Among other things, yes. My mom says I might have some Native American blood in me. She says my real dad was part Apache, but she doesn't like to talk about him much. Tommy picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the water. She gets sad when I ask too many questions. Jake felt like his chest was being crushed. Rosa had told their son about his heritage, but she got sad talking about it. Because of him. Because of the pain he'd caused her. That night, after all the kids were asleep, Jake did something he'd never had the courage to do before. He called information and asked for Rosa Rodriguez in Phoenix. The operator found 3 Rosa Rodriguez listings. Jake's hands shook as he wrote down the phone numbers. But when he tried to dial the first one, he couldn't do it. What would he say? Hi, Rosa, it's the guy who abandoned you 15 years ago. By the way, is that kid at summer camp my son? Instead, Jake spent hours on the internet looking up everything he could find about Rosa Rodriguez. He found her school website, her teaching awards, even a newspaper article about a reading program she'd started for struggling students. She had built a good life for herself. She was respected, successful, and from everything he could see, she was a wonderful mother to Tommy. Jake also found a few photos from school events. Rosa looked older, of course, but she still had that same warm smile. In one picture, she was reading to a group of kids, and Jake could see the same patience and kindness in her face that he remembered from when she used to help him with his math homework. But there were no pictures of a husband, no mention of a partner or boyfriend. It seemed like Rosa had raised Tommy by herself. The guilt was eating Jake alive. On Tommy's last day at camp, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He pulled Mrs. Patterson aside after breakfast. "I need Rosa Rodriguez's phone number," he said. Mrs. Patterson studied his face carefully. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" "Really sure?" Jake looked across the campsite where Tommy was helping younger kids take down their tents, showing them how to fold the fabric properly so it wouldn't get damaged. "I'm sure," he said. "I need to know the truth. And if Tommy is my son, then Rosa deserves to know that I want to be part of his life now. And if she doesn't want you in their lives?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Then I'll respect that. But I have to try. I owe them both that much." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly and wrote down Rosa's phone number on a piece of paper. "Jake, whatever happened between you two in the past, that boy is happy and well loved. Don't mess that up unless you're absolutely certain you're ready to be the father he deserves." "I understand." That evening, as the bus pulled away with Tommy waving goodbye from the back window, Jake sat on the porch of his cabin holding Rosa's phone number. 15 years ago, he had run away from the most important decision of his life. Tonight, he was finally ready to face it. For 3 days after Tommy left camp, Jake carried Rosa's phone number in his shirt pocket like it was burning a hole through the fabric. Every time he reached for it, his hands would start shaking and he'd find an excuse to do something else instead. On Thursday morning, he was fixing a broken fence when he realized he was being ridiculous. He was 33 years old, not some scared teenager anymore. Whatever Rosa had to say to him, he could handle it. He owed her the truth about why he left, and he owed Tommy the chance to know his father. Jake walked back to his cabin, sat down at his small kitchen table, and dialed the number before he could change his mind. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" The voice was deeper than he remembered, but it was definitely Rosa. Jake's throat went completely dry. "Rosa, this is Jake Crow Feather." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long that Jake wondered if she'd hung up. "Jake." When she finally spoke, her voice was flat and cold. "It's been 15 years, I know. I know it has." Jake closed his eyes, trying to find the right words. "Rosa, I need to talk to you. About Tommy." Another long silence. "How do you know about my son?" Her voice was sharp now, protective. "He was at the summer camp where I work, as a park ranger, in Colorado." Jake was talking too fast, stumbling over his words. "Rosa, he looks just like me when I was his age. The timeline, it fits. You think Tommy is your son?" Rosa's voice was quiet, but Jake could hear something dangerous underneath it. I think he might be. And if he is, I want you to know that I didn't know. I never knew you were pregnant when I left. If you had known what?" The dangerous edge in Rosa's voice was getting sharper. "You would have stayed? You would have done the right thing?" "Don't make me laugh, Jake. You made it very clear that you didn't want any ties or responsibilities." Jake felt like he'd been slapped, but he deserved it. "You're right. I was a coward 15 years ago. I was scared and stupid, and I handled everything wrong. But Rosa, I'm not that scared kid anymore. If Tommy is my son, I want to be part of his life." "You want to be part of his life?" Rosa's voice rose. "Where have you been for the past 12 years? Where were you when he had pneumonia and almost died when he was 3? Where were you when he asked me why all the other kids had dads and he didn't? Where were you when I worked 2 jobs just to keep us in a decent apartment?" Each question hit Jake like a punch to the gut. "I didn't know, because you never bothered to find out. You ran away, Jake. You left without a word to anyone. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Jake could hear Rosa crying now, and the sound broke his heart all over again. "I tried to find you," she continued through her tears. "When I found out I was pregnant, I tried calling your family. Your sister told me you'd made it clear you never wanted to see anyone from the reservation again. She said you'd started a new life and didn't want any reminders of your old one." Jake felt sick. His sister had never told him about any phone calls. But then again, he'd told his family not to contact him when he left. He'd been so angry and hurt that he'd cut off everyone from his past. "Rosa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake I ever made. Sorry doesn't give Tommy back the father he should have had, Rosa said. But her voice was softer now. Sorry doesn't take away all the nights he cried because he thought his dad didn't want him. Jake wiped his eyes with his sleeve. You're right. Nothing I say can fix what I did. But Rosa, Tommy is an amazing kid. You did an incredible job raising him. He's smart and kind and brave, and I could see how much he loves you, just from the way he talked about you at camp. He is amazing, Rosa agreed, and Jake could hear the pride in her voice. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Will you meet with me? Let me explain what happened. Let me tell you why I left and what I've been doing all these years. Rosa was quiet for a long time. Jake could hear her breathing, could almost feel her thinking through the phone. I don't know, Jake. Tommy and I have a good life now. I don't want you to come back and mess that up just because you're feeling guilty. It's not about guilt, Jake said quickly. Well, it is partly about guilt, but it's more than that. Rosa, I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped regretting what I did. And now that I know about Tommy, I want to be the father he deserves if you'll let me. And what happens when things get difficult? What happens when being a father gets hard or inconvenient? Do you run away again? Jake had expected this question, but it still hurt to hear. I understand why you don't trust me. I understand why you think I might run again. But Rosa, I'm not 18 anymore. I've spent 15 years learning from the mistake I made. I won't run again. You can't just promise that, Jake. You have to prove it. Then let me prove it. Meet with me. Let me show you who I am now. Let me try to make up for lost time. Rosa sighed deeply.
Jake, do you understand what you're asking?
Tommy doesn't know anything about you. As far as he knows, his father is some guy who didn't want him. If I tell him the truth now, if I let you into his life, you can't just decide later that it's too hard and walk away. You can't break his heart the way you broke mine. I won't, Jake said firmly. I promise you, Rosa, I won't hurt him. Your promises didn't mean much 15 years ago. The words stung, but Jake forced himself to stay calm. You're right, but I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to show you they mean something now. Another long silence. There's a coffee shop called Desert Bloom on 7th Avenue in Phoenix, Rosa said finally. Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Just you and me. We talk and then I decide whether Tommy ever needs to know you exist. Thank you, Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. Rosa, thank you for giving me this chance. I'm not doing this for you, Rosa said coldly. I'm doing this for Tommy. He has a right to know the truth about his father, even if that truth is disappointing. The line went dead. Jake sat at his kitchen table for a long time after the call ended, staring at his phone. In 3 days, he would see Rosa again for the first time in 15 years. He would have to explain the worst mistake of his life and somehow convince her that he deserved a chance to know his son. The next 3 days passed like torture. Jake couldn't concentrate on his work. He barely slept. He practiced what he would say to Rosa 100 times, but nothing sounded right. On Friday night, he called his sister Lucy for the first time in 5 years. Jake? Lucy sounded shocked to hear from him. Is everything okay? Lucy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Jake took a deep breath. 15 years ago, after I left the reservation, did anyone ever call looking for me? Specifically, did Rosa Martinez ever call? The silence on the other end told him everything he needed to know. Lucy? Jake, Yes, Rosa called about 6 months after you left. She said she needed to talk to you about something important. And what did you tell her? I told her you'd made it clear you never wanted to hear from anyone back home again. You were so angry when you left, Jake. You said you never wanted to see or hear from any of us ever again. Jake closed his eyes. Did she say what she wanted to talk to me about? No, but she was crying. I felt bad about it, but Jake, you'd been so clear that you wanted to start over completely. I thought I was protecting you. I know you did. Jake couldn't be angry with his sister. This was his fault, not hers. Lucy, Rosa was pregnant. I have a son I never knew about. The gasp on the other end of the line was audible. Oh, Jake, oh no. His name is Tommy. He's 12 years old and he's amazing. And tomorrow I have to face Rosa and try to convince her that I deserve to know him. What are you going to tell her? Jake looked out his cabin window at the mountains that had been his home for so many years. The truth. That I was a scared, stupid kid who made the worst mistake of his life, and that I'm ready to spend the rest of my life making up for it. On Saturday morning, Jake drove toward Phoenix with his heart pounding and his palms sweating. He'd worn his best jeans and a clean button-down shirt, and he'd even trimmed his hair. As he pulled into the parking lot of Desert Bloom Coffee, Jake saw Rosa through the window. She was sitting at a corner table, wearing a blue dress and looking older but still beautiful. Her hair was shorter now, and there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there when she was 17. Jake took a deep breath, said a prayer to his grandfather's spirit, and walked inside to face the woman whose heart he'd broken and the future he'd thrown away 15 years ago. The coffee shop was busy for a Saturday afternoon, filled with families and couples enjoying their weekend. Jake stood in the doorway for a moment watching Rosa. She was reading something on her phone, and when she looked up and saw him, her expression didn't change. No smile, no frown, just the careful blank look of someone who was protecting herself. Jake walked over slowly, his legs feeling unsteady. "Rosa, Jake." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Sit down." He sat, noticing that she'd already ordered herself a coffee. The Rosa he remembered used to drink hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, but people change in 15 years. "Thank you for meeting me," Jake said. Rosa nodded but didn't speak. She was studying his face like she was looking for something specific. "You look different," she said finally. "Older, obviously, but different in other ways too." 15 years will do that, Jake agreed. "You look beautiful. I mean, you always did, but you look, I don't know, stronger, I guess. I had to get stronger." Rosa's voice was matter-of-fact. "When you're raising a child by yourself, you don't have the luxury of falling apart." The words hit Jake like a slap, but he deserved it. "Rosa, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. I know sorry isn't enough, but I need you to understand why I left. I'm listening." Jake took a deep breath. Where did he even start? "When I left that night, my father was dying. The doctors had given him maybe 2 weeks. My uncle wanted to sell our land to the casino people, and my aunt was threatening to take him to tribal court to stop him. My mother was falling apart, and everyone kept asking me what I thought we should do. Like I had answers when I was just 18 years old." Rosa's expression softened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. "I felt like I was suffocating," Jake continued. "Like everyone needed something from me that I couldn't give. And then there was us, and what I felt for you was so strong it scared me. I'd never loved anyone like that before." "So you ran away from love because it scared you?" Rosa's voice was bitter. "That's your excuse?" "Not an excuse. An explanation." Jake leaned forward. "Rosa, I was 18. I was terrified of everything. Terrified of my father dying. Terrified of making the wrong decision about the land. Terrified that I wasn't good enough for you. Not good enough for me?" Rosa looked genuinely surprised. "Jake, what are you talking about? I loved you exactly as you were. I know that now. But back then I felt like everyone was watching me, waiting for me to fail. You were so smart, so sure of yourself. You had plans for college, dreams about becoming a teacher, and I was just some confused kid who couldn't even figure out what to do about his own family." Rosa was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee with a plastic spoon. "So instead of talking to me about any of this, you decided the solution was to disappear in the middle of the night?" Jake nodded, ashamed. "I thought if I left, everyone would stop depending on me to fix things. I thought maybe you'd be better off without me holding you back." "That wasn't your decision to make," Rosa said firmly. "You didn't get to decide what was better for me. You didn't get to just abandon me without even giving me a chance to help or to choose for myself. You're absolutely right." Jake met her eyes. "It was selfish and cowardly, and I've regretted it every single day since then." Rosa studied his face again. "What have you been doing for 15 years, Jake? Where did you go when you left?" Jake told her everything. About driving north until his truck broke down in Colorado. About working on a ranch for 3 years, learning to take care of animals and mend fences. About going back to school to study forestry and environmental science. About becoming a park ranger and finding peace in the mountains. "I bought a small cabin about 10 years ago," he said. "It's nothing fancy, but it's quiet and peaceful. I lead hiking groups, teach camping skills to kids, help with forest conservation projects. Have you been back to the reservation?" Rosa asked. "No." Jake shook his head. "I kept meaning to, but I was too ashamed. Too afraid that everyone would hate me for leaving." "Your father died 2 months after you left," Rosa said quietly. "Your mother never got over you not being there for the funeral." Jake felt like someone had stabbed him in the chest. He'd known his father was dying when he left, but somehow he'd convinced himself that maybe the man would recover. Maybe Jake would have time to make things right. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I went to the funeral," Rosa said. "Your mother was heartbroken that you weren't there. She kept asking if anyone had heard from you." Jake wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Another mistake. Another person he'd hurt with his selfishness. "Tell me about Tommy," he said, changing the subject because he couldn't handle any more guilt right now. "Tell me about his life." Rosa's whole face changed when she talked about her son. The hardness melted away, replaced by pure love and pride. "He was born 8 months after you left. Labor was 36 hours, and he was stubborn from the very beginning." She smiled for the first time since Jake had arrived. "He walked at 10 months, started talking at 8 months. He's always been ahead of other kids his age." She pulled out her phone and showed Jake photos. Tommy as a toddler, grinning with chocolate cake all over his face. Tommy starting kindergarten, looking serious in a little button-up shirt. Tommy at a science fair, standing proudly next to a volcano model. "He loves science," Rosa continued, "and animals. Last year he found a stray cat and convinced me to let him keep it. He named her Luna because she has a white crescent on her forehead." Jake studied each photo hungrily, trying to memorize his son's face at every age. "He looks happy. He is happy. Most of the time." Rosa's voice got quieter. "But Jake, he asks about you. About his father. And it breaks my heart every time because I don't know what to tell him." "What do you tell him?" "I tell him that his father was a good man who wasn't ready to be a dad when he was young. I tell him that sometimes people make mistakes they can't take back." Rosa looked directly at Jake. "I never told him that you abandoned us. I never wanted him to grow up thinking his father didn't love him." Jake felt tears running down his cheeks. Even after everything he'd done, Rosa had protected Tommy from the worst of the truth. "He deserves better than that story," Jake said. "He deserves the truth." "What truth is that, Jake? That his father was too scared to stick around? That he ran away when things got difficult? That his father was young and stupid and made the biggest mistake of his life?" Jake said firmly. "And that if he could go back and change everything, he would." Rosa was quiet for a long time, looking at the photos on her phone. "I dated other men," she said finally. "Not many, but a few. Tommy always hoped one of them would want to be his father, but it never worked out. They liked me fine, but a ready-made family was more than most of them wanted to handle." Jake felt a surge of anger at these men who hadn't appreciated what they had right in front of them. "I never married," Rosa continued. "I kept thinking maybe someday the right person would come along, someone who would love Tommy as much as I do. But it never happened." "Do you still hate me?" Jake asked quietly. Rosa considered the question seriously. "I don't hate you," she said finally. "I did for a while. I was angry and hurt and scared, raising a baby by myself. But hate takes too much energy, and I needed all my energy for Tommy. Do you think you could ever forgive me?" "I don't know," Rosa said honestly. "Maybe, but Jake, this isn't just about me anymore. It's about Tommy. If you want to be part of his life, you have to understand that you can't just be his father when it's convenient. You can't show up for the fun stuff and disappear when he needs you most. I understand, do you?" Rosa leaned forward. "Because being a parent is hard, Jake. It's staying up all night when they're sick. It's going to every school play and soccer game even when you're exhausted. It's helping with homework you don't understand and dealing with teenage attitude and worrying about them every single day." "I want all of that," Jake said. "The good parts and the hard parts. I want to be the father Tommy deserves." Rosa stared at him for a long moment. "He's playing in a baseball game next Saturday. Little League. If you're serious about this, if you really want to be part of his life, then prove it. Show up. Where?" "Desert Valley Park. Game starts at 10 in the morning." Rosa gathered her purse and stood up. "Jake, if you come to that game, there's no going back. I'll have to tell Tommy who you are. And if you ever hurt him the way you hurt me, I will never forgive you. Do you understand?" Jake stood up too, his heart pounding. "I understand. Rosa, I won't let you down again. I won't let him down." Rosa nodded once, then turned and walked away without looking back. Jake sat back down and watched through the window as she got into a small blue car and drove away. In 1 week, he would meet his son, not as a park ranger at summer camp, but as Tommy's father. The thought terrified and excited him at the same time. Jake pulled out his phone and looked up Desert Valley Park. Then he sat in that coffee shop for another hour, thinking about everything that had led him to this moment and everything that would happen next. 15 years ago, he had run away from the most important people in his life. Next Saturday, he was finally ready to come home. The week between Rosa's coffee shop meeting and Tommy's baseball game was the longest week of Jake's life. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and definitely couldn't concentrate on his ranger duties. He kept imagining how the conversation would go, what Tommy would say when he found out the truth, whether his son would hate him or give him a chance. Jake had never been so nervous about anything in his entire life. On Friday night, he drove to Phoenix and checked into a small motel near the baseball park. He wanted to be there early, wanted to make sure nothing could go wrong. He'd bought a new shirt and spent an hour at the barber shop, getting his hair trimmed neat and professional. Saturday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Jake arrived at Desert Valley Park at 9:30, half an hour before the game was supposed to start. The parking lot was already filling up with families carrying folding chairs and coolers. Kids in baseball uniforms were warming up on the field, their voices carrying across the morning air. Jake found a spot on the bleachers where he could see everything but wouldn't be too obvious. His hands were shaking so badly he had to sit on them. At 9:45, he saw Rosa's blue car pull into the parking lot. She got out first wearing jeans and a team t-shirt, looking like any other baseball mom. Then Tommy climbed out of the passenger seat in his uniform, number 12, carrying his glove and a bat bag. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Seeing Tommy in person again, knowing for certain now that this was his son, felt like a miracle and a heartbreak all at once. Rosa said something to Tommy, and the boy nodded and jogged toward his teammates. Rosa watched him go, then looked around the bleachers until she spotted Jake. She walked over slowly, looking as nervous as he felt. "You came," she said, sitting down beside him. "I said I would. A lot of people say things they don't mean." Jake looked at her seriously. "I meant it, Rosa. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Rosa nodded toward the field where Tommy was practicing with his team. "His coach says he's one of the best players they've had in years. Natural athlete. Good instincts. He gets that from you," Jake said. "You were always coordinated, always good at sports." "Maybe he gets it from both of us," Rosa said quietly. They sat in awkward silence for a few minutes, watching the boys warm up. Tommy was easy to spot, not just because Jake was looking for him, but because he stood out. He moved with confidence, encouraged his teammates, and smiled easily at everyone around him. "He's a good kid," Jake said. "He's the best kid," Rosa agreed. "Jake, before we do this, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter how he reacts today, you won't give up on him. He might be angry or confused or scared. He might not want anything to do with you at first." Jake felt his stomach twist. "Do you think he won't want to know me?" "I don't know how he'll react. But I need to know that you're committed to this for the long term, not just today." "I promise," Jake said firmly. "Rosa, I've waited 15 years to meet my son. I'm not going to give up after one conversation." Rosa nodded, then stood up. "I'm going to get him now." Jake watched as Rosa walked down to the field and called Tommy over. She put her hand on his shoulder and spoke quietly to him. Tommy's face went from confused to shocked, to something Jake couldn't read from this distance. The boy looked up at the bleachers, scanning until he found Jake. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the baseball diamond. Then Tommy said something to his coach and followed Rosa back to the bleachers. "Tommy," Rosa said when they reached Jake, "this is Jake Crow Feather. Your father." Tommy looked up at Jake with those familiar dark eyes, studying his face carefully. Jake could see his own features reflected in the boy's face, but also Rosa's intelligence and strength. "You're really my dad?" Tommy asked. Jake's voice came out rough with emotion. "Yes, I really am. Why didn't you want me when I was little?" The question hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. He looked at Rosa, who nodded encouragingly. "It wasn't that I didn't want you," Jake said carefully. "I didn't know you existed. Your mother and I lost touch before she knew she was pregnant with you." "But why did you lose touch?" Tommy pressed. "Why didn't you stay with my mom?" Jake took a deep breath. This was the hardest conversation he'd ever had to have. "I made a really big mistake when I was 18 years old," he said. "I was scared about a lot of things in my life, and instead of dealing with my problems like an adult, I ran away. I left your mom without explaining why, and I hurt her very badly. Tommy glanced at Rosa, then back at Jake. Were you scared of being my dad? I was scared of everything back then, Jake admitted. But Tommy, if I had known about you, I would have stayed. I would have figured out how to be brave because you would have been worth it. Tommy was quiet for a moment, thinking. Mom says you're Apache. I am. Which means you are too. That's cool. Tommy smiled for the first time since learning who Jake was. I've always wanted to know about that part of me. Mom doesn't know much about Native American stuff. I could teach you, Jake offered. About our culture, our history, our traditions. If you want to learn, I'd like that. Tommy looked at Rosa. Is it okay, Mom? Rosa smiled, and Jake could see tears in her eyes. It's okay, sweetheart. Jake is your father, and you have every right to get to know him. Tommy Rodriguez, his coach called from the field. Let's go, son. Game time. Tommy looked torn between staying to talk and going to play baseball. Go play, Jake said. I'll be right here watching. You're going to stay for the whole game? I'm going to stay for as long as you want me to, Jake said. Tommy grinned and ran back to the field. Jake and Rosa watched him join his teammates, saw him pointing up at the bleachers and talking excitedly to the other boys. How do you think that went? Jake asked. Better than I expected, Rosa admitted. He's been wanting to know about his father for so long that I think he's just happy to finally have answers. The game was exciting, but Jake barely paid attention to the score. He was completely focused on Tommy, cheering every time his son came up to bat, holding his breath during every play. In the bottom of the sixth inning, Tommy hit a double that brought in 2 runs, and Jake found himself on his feet cheering loudly. After the game, which Tommy's team won 8-6, the boy ran over to where Jake and Rosa were sitting. Did you see my hit? Tommy asked breathlessly. I saw it, Jake said. That was amazing. You're a natural athlete. Tommy beamed with pride. Mom, can Jake come get ice cream with us? You always take me for ice cream after games. Rosa looked at Jake. Would you like to join us? I'd love to. An hour later, they were sitting in a small ice cream shop watching Tommy work his way through an enormous sundae while he peppered Jake with questions. Where do you live now? Do you have other kids? What's your job like? Can you teach me to ride horses? Do you know how to do war paint? What's your Apache name? Jake answered every question patiently, delighting in his son's curiosity and intelligence. Tommy was funny and thoughtful, asking follow-up questions that showed he was really listening to the answers. I work at a summer camp in Colorado, Jake explained. I teach kids about nature and camping and outdoor survival. That sounds awesome. Could I come visit sometime? Jake looked at Rosa, who nodded slightly. I'd love that. Maybe next summer if your mom thinks it's okay. Can we do Apache stuff too? Like learn about my ancestors and maybe visit where our family comes from? Absolutely. Jake felt his chest swell with pride and love for this amazing boy. There's so much I want to share with you about our heritage. As they walked back to the parking lot, Tommy suddenly stopped and looked up at Jake. Are you going to leave again? He asked quietly. The question broke Jake's heart. He knelt down so he could look Tommy in the eyes. No, he said firmly. I'm never going to leave you again, Tommy. I know I wasn't there for the first 12 years of your life, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm here now, and I'm going to stay in your life for as long as you want me there. Promise? I promise. Tommy threw his arms around Jake's neck in a sudden hug that caught both adults by surprise. Jake hugged his son back, feeling tears stream down his face. I'm glad you're my dad, Tommy whispered. I'm glad you're my son, Jake whispered back. When they finally separated, Rosa was crying too, so what happens now? Tommy asked, looking between his parents. Jake and Rosa looked at each other. They had a lot to figure out. Visitation schedules, phone calls, how to blend Jake into Tommy's established routine. Now we take it one day at a time, Rosa said. Jake lives far away, so we'll have to figure out how to make this work. But we'll make it work, okay? Tommy nodded enthusiastically. This is the best day ever. As Jake drove back to his motel that night, he couldn't stop smiling. He had a son. A wonderful, smart, kind son who wanted to know him, who wanted to learn about their Apache heritage, who had hugged him like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. Jake called Rosa after Tommy would have gone to bed. Thank you, he said when she answered. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for raising such an incredible kid. Thank you for not giving up on the idea that he should know his father. Thank you for coming back, Rosa said softly. I wasn't sure you would. I told you I'm not 18 anymore, Jake said. I meant that. I know you did. Jake, this is going to be complicated. We have a lot to figure out.